The deadliest predators in the animal kingdom don't roar, they stalk in silence. Same rules apply to power. The people who truly run this world, you've never heard their names. And that's exactly how they planned it. Why invisibility became the ultimate currency of control. There's a strange pattern in how modern power actually works. The faces you see on magazine covers, the names trending on social media, the loudest voices in the room, they're almost never the ones making the real decisions. They're the distraction, the sleight of hand, while the actual trick happens somewhere else entirely. Law 38 of the 48 Laws of Power states, think as you like, but behave like others. But the true masters take this further. They don't just blend in, they engineer perception so precisely that you're not even looking in their direction when they make their move. Consider the pharmaceutical industry. You know the brand names of medications. You might even know some CEO faces. But do you know who owns the patents? Who sits on the boards of multiple competing companies? Who funded the research decades ago that created today's blockbusters? That's where real power lives. In the shadows of shell corporations and investment vehicles with boring names. The Stoics understood something profound about human nature. We're wired to respect visible displays of strength. The loud voice, the chest puffing, the demonstrations of dominance. And that's precisely why those displays are worthless. Because everyone's watching them. Everyone's preparing for them. Everyone's ready to counter them. NCIS Rule 3. Never believe what you're told. Double check everything. The people who actually control outcomes have learned to make their influence look like coincidence, like market forces, like inevitable trends, anything but deliberate manipulation. Here's the dark humor in all this: we live in the most surveilled, documented, transparent era in human history, or so we think. Truth is, real power has just gotten better at hiding. Better tools, better lawyers, better offshore structures. The transparency is for you, not for them. There's a conspiracy theory about secret clauses in international trade agreements, provisions that never make it to public documents but somehow always get enforced. True or not, it illustrates the core principle. The most important rules are the ones you never see written down. Have you ever wondered why the truly wealthy stop appearing on rich lists after a certain point? How the need to prove yourself became your greatest weakness. Let me tell you about a billionaire who died a few years ago. Owned significant stakes in media companies, real estate empires, tech startups. When he passed, the obituary in major newspapers was for paragraphs. 4. Meanwhile, influencers with the fraction of his wealth get documentary series. That's not an accident. That's strategy spanning decades. Law 4 of the 48 Laws of Power. Always say less than necessary. But there's a deeper game being played. It's not just about staying quiet. It's about creating systematic obscurity, making your power structure so complex that even forensic accountants get lost in the maze. The discipline here isn't silence. It's architectural. You don't just avoid attention, you build mechanisms that deflect it. Foundations that do the donating. Advisors who do the negotiating. Partners who do the public facing. Your name appears nowhere, but your fingerprints are on everything. During the Cold War, some of the most successful intelligence operations weren't the dramatic defections or spy swaps you see in movies. They were decades-long cultivations of assets who never knew they were being cultivated. Influence so subtle, it felt like their own thoughts. The Stoics practiced negative visualization, imagining loss to appreciate what you have. But apply this to power dynamics, and it becomes something else. It's imagining every way your position could be attacked, then systematically eliminating those attack vectors. No public profile, no scandal potential, no known assets, nothing to target. NCIS Rule 39. There is no such thing as a coincidence. When powerful people repeatedly avoid the spotlight, that's not humility. That's survival instinct honed over generations. The families that kept their wealth through revolutions and world wars, they're the ones you've never heard of. Here's what keeps me up at night: social media trained an entire generation to document everything. Every achievement, every purchase, every location. You're building a database of vulnerabilities and calling it a personal brand. Meanwhile, the people who actually move markets can't be Googled. The funniest part, We celebrate transparency like it's a virtue. For regular people, maybe. For the powerful, transparency is just another word for target practice. What are you broadcasting that you should be burying? Why the anonymous always outlast the famous? History has this brutal pattern. The kings and emperors whose names echo through centuries, most died violently or in exile. The merchant families who quietly funded those kings, still wealthy today. Visibility equals vulnerability. It's not poetic, it's mathematical. There's a concept in network security called security through obscurity. It's controversial in tech circles, but in power dynamics, it's gospel. The server nobody knows exists can't be hacked. The influence nobody knows you have can't be countered. Law 21 of the 48 laws of power. Play a sucker to catch a sucker seem dumber than your mark. The ultimate version of this is seeming like you're not even playing the game. While everyone fights for the visible throne, you're redesigning the kingdom's borders. Look at how lobbying actually works in Washington. The companies spending billions on influence, you know their names. But the real architects of policy? Small consulting firms you've never heard of, staffed by former officials, writing the actual legislation that gets introduced verbatim. Power laundered through bureaucracy. Stoic philosophy teaches amor fati, love of fate, but the weaponized version is different. It's accepting that you don't need credit for the outcome. The general who wins the war gets the parade. The logistics officer who made victory possible gets forgotten. Guess which one stays safe when the political winds shift? NCIS Rule 13. Never involve a lawyer unless you have to. The powerful have evolved beyond this. They structure everything so cleanly that lawyers aren't needed. No visible connection, no legal liability, just a web of legitimate transactions that somehow always benefit the same invisible center. There's a theory about permanent government, career bureaucrats, and connected insiders who outlast every elected administration. They don't make headlines. They make policy, and they're there long after the presidents are in libraries giving speeches. You want to know what real power looks like? It looks like nothing. Drop Phantom in the comments. Tell me, who's someone you only learned was extremely powerful after they were already gone? Hit that like button and subscribe, because understanding how invisible power operates is the first step to wielding it yourself. How the loudest person in the room became everyone's target. Here's the test of whether you understand power. When something major happens in your life, a big win, a significant acquisition, a strategic victory, can you keep your mouth shut? Because if you can't, you're still operating at amateur level. The pros don't just hide their wins. They hide the entire game they're playing. Law 17 of the 48 laws of power. Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability. But unpredictability only works when people don't even know you're a factor. Be unpredictable and visible. You're just chaotic. Be unpredictable and invisible. You're a force of nature nobody can prepare for. Military spec ops don't wear medals into combat. They don't advertise their training. They don't post about their missions. The most dangerous operators are the ones who look like anybody. That's not modesty, that's threat multiplication through anonymity. The Stoics talked about apatheia, emotionlessness, but such perfect control over your reactions that you become unreadable. In poker, they call it a perfect bluff. In power dynamics, it's something more. It's making people forget you're even in the game while you stack the deck. Private equity works on this principle. They buy companies, strip them, rebuild them, sell them, and most employees never know who actually owned them during that process. Just some LLC with a generic name. No face, no personality, no target for anger. When jobs get cut. NCIS Rule 16. If someone thinks they have the upper hand, break it. The invisible power brokers apply this by never letting anyone know they're competing in the first place. Can't break a hand you don't know exists. Here's the really disturbing part: we're entering an age where AI and algorithms will run more of our lives. And you know what? The people programming those systems aren't the tech celebrities you see on stages. They're engineers whose names you'll never learn, making decisions that affect billions. The ultimate power move isn't winning. It's winning while everyone thinks the game hasn't even started. What power are you building in silence? Type stealth in the comments and answer this. What's one major move you made that nobody knew about until it was done? Share this video with someone who's still confusing noise with impact. Smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the next video breaks down how the invisible elite eliminate threats before those threats even know they're under attack.